Okay, great. Hello and welcome. My name is Blank, and I'm here to talk you through my mastering chain. I use Ableton, but most of this can be used inside everything else. I mean, sure, things like Saturator and Utility are like Ableton only, but I guess you could find equivalents inside FL Studio and such. But I'll just walk you through it really quick. So the first thing I have on is a utility, and this is just for extra gain staging if I need to do any, and to check my mix in both stereo and mono in case I want to do that, because you should always check your mixes and masters both mono and stereo. Next up, a saturator. Right now, it's not doing anything. It's situational, how much I want to saturate and how I want to saturate it. It's just to give it some of that extra harmonics. I've turned it on soft clip, and I usually use analog clip just so that it doesn't distort. It just gives some beef to the sound. It's really great on dubstep tracks, especially. Next up, just an EQ, doing some mid-side EQing. So here is this is my mid band. As you can see, it's just a slight boost in the low mid section. That's in 400 hertz. And then on the sides, you can actually see that I've taken down the lows. I've cut them out entirely because I don't want that extra bass, that extra boominess on my sides. I want to keep my bass mono, and that's why I've done this. Just to make sure that my bass is actually mono and not too stereo and too wide, because that makes mixing hard. Next up, another EQ, just a general low cut on 30 hertz for that, taking out extra boominess from the low end, and then a high cut on 20k because you don't need stuff above that. Some people cut at 16k, some people cut at 17 or 18k. I do it at 20 because I think that's where the human hearing area ends, and I'd cut at 20 hertz, but the Ableton EQ doesn't go in lower than 30, so I'm cutting it there. Sometimes I'm cutting it at 40 because you don't really need anything below that either, but if I have a really good sub bass, I'm keeping it at 30 because then you can still feel it even though you can't really hear it. But this is just a normal stereo EQ doing the cuts, and just a slight boost on like 1 kilohertz about, just for some extra mids. These both this and this, as well as this cut over here, these are all very situational and depending on the track, as well as the saturator. Like, these are just here because these are my starting point for my mastering, and they're always subject to change. Next up, I have an OTT, because you just OTT, because you know OTT, over the top compression. It just makes everything sound good. As you can see, I've set it so that the dry wet is at 8%. So at this state, it's barely doing anything to the sound, maybe adding some extra harmonics, but that's it. I usually have it set somewhere between 15 to 40%, depending on the track and what I want the OTT to, like. Do I want my master to sound really OTT-ish, or do I want it to sound like there's an OTT slapped to a track somewhere, but it's not like the main thing? Next up, some multiband compression. Also, all these threshold settings are also very much prone to change, subject to change depending on the track. This multiband compressor is also set to not be completely wet, so that it's like doing parallel compression. Like only some of the signal is actually getting compressed and some is going through unscathed. This subject to change, subject to change. These, as you can see, I'm not boosting anything right now with this compressor. It's just there in case I need it and want to use it. Uh, Second to last thing I have here, just a glue compressor. I love this plugin. One of the many reasons why I switched to Ableton. It's just there to literally, like it says, glue everything together. It's just that last piece of cohesion for the entire mix, just to really squash everything just a little bit. And then the last thing on my master chain is another utility to act as a limiter, and so I can all do both. Fuck off. So I can both check my master chain pre-chain mono and post-chain mono and stereo in case I need to and I want to, whatever. It's just there for that and that reason alone. Uh, the nifty thing about Ableton, I've set it all up as an audio chain, and I've saved it as a preset under the audio effect track section, so I can just drag and drop anytime I need it. It's always there. Some things change, like these are here just because they're lightweight, and I know that this mastering chain will run on my laptop as well. Nowadays, what I really love to do instead of this whole chain is to actually use a virtual mix track. Fuck, I don't have my unlock. Well, anyway, a virtual mix rack, just a couple EQ, like a preamp, an EQ, a compressor, and then just a virtual bus compressor rack. So just it's compressing everything. But that was my mastering chain. It does things. It does a lot of things. It's got EQs. It's got compression. Uh, because like I said, mastering in a nutshell is just making sure that the track sounds clean and as loud as possible. And that's what my mastering chain is aimed towards. You can do all this with a single ozone if you feel like it, and it's the fastest way. I think I used to do it, but I don't do it anymore. I don't like using ozone. Uh, but yeah, like just make sure that once you start doing mastering, that your mix has enough headroom. I like leaving it at -6 dB at least, but I might need more sometimes. I hope you got something out of this whole video because I'm extremely tired while I'm doing this. So yeah, ask the guys around the Discord if they can help you further, I guess. And yeah, I'll catch you some other time. Peace.